"I'll give you $100 for that horse," the woman said, "but only if the cowboy selling him comes with him." Jesse Holt stared at her, certain he had heard wrong. 3 weeks earlier, he had brought Copper, his father's 6-year-old chestnut gelding, to the Clearwater trading post, hoping to get $50 before the bank took the family ranch. He had only $11 in his pocket, 30 days left before. The note came due, and 40 acres, that meant more to him than anything money could buy. Copper was worth far more than $50, but Jesse had no time to wait for the right buyer. The horse had a white blaze running down his face and a stubborn intelligence in his dark eyes. He trusted Jesse completely and almost nobody else. 2 men had tried to buy him already. Both had learned that Copper did not appreciate strangers pulling on his reins. Then, on a cool September afternoon in Wyoming Territory, an elegant carriage stopped outside the trading post. A woman stepped down wearing a deep burgundy dress, black gloves, and a calm expression that suggested she noticed everything around her. She studied Copper, then the handwritten price board, and finally Jesse. "$50?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." She walked toward Copper and slowly placed a gloved hand against his nose. Jesse held his breath. Copper remained perfectly still. The woman smiled faintly. "I'll pay twice that." Jesse blinked. "For Copper?" "For Copper," she replied, "and another month's wages for you." Jesse looked from her to the horse. "You want me to come with him?" "I want someone who understands him." She extended her hand. "Diana Whitmore." Jesse introduced himself, still trying to understand his luck. Diana owned Whitmore Ranch, 12 miles north, and one of the largest properties in the county. By Monday morning, Jesse and Copper were standing behind the ranch's enormous main house. The stables were better than some homes Jesse had known, and the pastures stretched farther than he could see. But the welcome was not entirely warm. A sharply dressed ranch manager named Miles Croft met him at the gate and looked at Jesse as though he were an unexpected problem. He explained the sleeping arrangements, the work schedule, and who Jesse would report to. Yet Diana had made one thing clear. Jesse was responsible for the horses. That afternoon, Diana took him into the stable to inspect a young mare. Jesse noticed something immediately. "Her hoof is starting to turn," he said. Diana frowned. "The farrier said she was fine." Jesse knelt beside the mare. He missed it. He examined the hoof carefully. "It's early. Treat it now and she'll recover quickly." Diana watched him with growing interest. Jesse checked every horse in the stable and discovered 2 more small problems. None were serious, but all had been overlooked. At supper that evening, Diana surprised him by inviting him to sit with the household, instead of eating with the ranch hands. She asked about his father, the ranch, and Copper. Jesse answered honestly. Diana listened carefully. For the first time in years, Jesse felt someone was interested in him for something other than what he owned. He did not know it yet, but the horse he had tried to sell for $50 was about to lead him into a life he had never imagined. By the 2nd week, Jesse had begun to understand why Diana had hired him. She knew horses, land, and business, but she had spent years trusting the wrong people to handle the details. Jesse noticed things because he had grown up working with almost nothing. When every sack of grain mattered, and every horse could mean the difference between keeping or losing a farm, a man learned to pay attention. One morning, the head wrangler, Tom, casually mentioned that 40 cattle had been sold at the Cheyenne auction during the summer. Later that afternoon, Jesse checked the ranch records and found only 32 listed. At first, he thought it was a mistake. Then he noticed another difference in the feed accounts. A third appeared in equipment purchases. None was large enough to attract attention by itself, but together they formed a troubling pattern. Jesse spent 3 days quietly checking the records. Every missing amount pointed in the same direction. He finally asked Diana to meet him privately. Her study overlooked the stable, and Jesse noticed that she kept practical books rather than expensive decorations. He placed the figures before her and explained what he had discovered. Diana stared at the papers for a long moment. "How certain are you?" she asked. "Certain enough to bring it to you," Jesse replied. She admitted that she had trusted Miles Croft for years. Jesse did not accuse anyone directly, but he told her the numbers could not be explained as ordinary mistakes. Diana immediately decided to bring in an independent lawyer from Cheyenne. "Until he arrives," she said, "keep doing your work. Do not let Croft know what you found." Jesse agreed. A few days later, Croft approached him inside. "The stable. Your employment will end at the close of the month," he said coldly. Jesse continued brushing copper. "Mrs. Whitmore hired me for a full month. I'll let her tell me if that changes." Croft's expression hardened. "You are making a mistake by getting involved in matters above your position." Jesse looked directly at him. "I'm only doing the work I was hired to do." Later, Jesse found Diana in a garden. She told him Croft had no authority to dismiss him. Jesse warned her that a desperate man might make one final move before the lawyer arrived. Diana considered his words carefully. "What would you do if this were your ranch?" she asked. Jesse thought about his father's 40 acres. "Stay close to what matters," he answered, "and never be alone." Diana looked at him quietly. "Then stay close," she said. 3 nights later, 2 valuable breeding mares disappeared from the south pasture. Croft immediately blamed poor management and suggested Jesse had been careless. But Jesse noticed the gate. It had a heavy double latch that could not have opened by itself. He followed tracks toward a creek and eventually found the mares hidden in a narrow canyon. Someone had deliberately placed them there. Jesse brought them home safely and showed Diana the rope he found at the site. She understood instantly. Croft was trying to create evidence of negligence before the lawyer arrived. That night, Diana asked Jesse to sleep in the tack room beside the stable. "It's close to the horses," she explained. Jesse looked at her. "And close to you," she quietly admitted. Neither said anything more. But something between them had changed. The danger had brought them closer, and neither could pretend not to feel it. If this story is keeping you company, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Nordic Love Stories, and tell us in the comments where you are listening from today. Now let's return to Whitmore Ranch, because the truth about Miles Croft was finally about to come into the light. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, arrived Thursday morning carrying decades of legal experience and no patience for dishonest men. Diana placed the ranch ledgers, auction records, and the rope Jesse had found in front of him. Tom also gave his statement. Henderson compared every figure carefully. By afternoon, Croft was called into the study. He entered confident, but that confidence disappeared piece by piece as Henderson presented the evidence. The missing livestock, false accounts, and staged incident in the south pasture all pointed toward the same man. Croft was forced to sign an agreement accepting responsibility for the stolen money and leaving Whitmore Ranch permanently. As he passed Jesse in the stable, he stopped. "You came here to sell a horse," Croft said bitterly. "You were never part of this world." Jesse looked at him calmly. "Maybe I came here for a horse," he replied, "but I found something worth staying for." Croft left without another word. That evening, the ranch felt peaceful again. Diana found Jesse beside Copper's stall. "It's over," she said. Jesse nodded. "Your month ends Sunday," Diana continued. Jesse expected her to say goodbye. Instead, she said, "I want you to stay." Jesse looked up. Diana stepped closer. "Not because I need another ranch. "And I want you here because I trust you." She told him that for 5 years she had managed the ranch alone. She had become strong because she had no other choice, but strength had not made the loneliness disappear. Jesse admitted that when he first arrived, he had only been thinking about saving his father's land. But somewhere along the way, the ranch had become home, and Diana had become the reason he wanted to remain. He took a breath. "Mrs. Whitmore, I would like permission to court you." Diana smiled. "I was wondering how long it would take you to ask." Jesse laughed softly. "You knew? Since the day you told me my farrier was wrong." For the first time, Diana reached for his hand without hesitation. Copper watched them from his stall and gave a quiet snort as though approving the arrangement. Several weeks later, Diana and Jesse were married in the ranch house with Tom and 2 members of the household standing as witnesses. Diana wore a simple dark green dress, and Jesse wore the best shirt he owned. There was no grand celebration because neither of them cared about impressing the town. They cared about building a life together. After supper, Jesse walked outside with Diana and looked across the fields. The banknote on his father's 40 acres had been paid. Copper was grazing peacefully nearby. The ranch was safe. And the woman who had once offered $100 for a horse simply because she wanted the cowboy who came with him was now his wife. Jesse smiled and whispered, "Best $50 I ever almost lost." Diana laughed, took his hand and leaned against his shoulder. Sometimes a man thinks he is selling the last thing he owns, only to discover he has been riding toward the life he was meant to find all along.